I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by Lord David Frost, a great Brexiteer and someone that was really directly responsible for helping bring about that coalition that won so big in 2019. David, thank you very much for your time today.
Great to be here.
David, can I start by asking you, you're on the candidates list, right? A lot of people might be saying, looks quite nice in the House of Lords. What's motivated you to want to leave it?
Well, I think the House of Commons is the centre of our national political life. The Lords is a nice place to be, and it does some important work, though I think it's getting a bit above itself in recent years. But the Commons is where real politics is, and the openness to electoral politics and the energy that produces is different. So I think if you want to be in politics, you've got to at least think hard whether you really want to be in the Commons.
So, if Rishi Sunak loses the next election, are we all going to be able to look forward to David Frost as leader of the Conservative Party?
I don't think that's a very likely outcome, and it's certainly not one that I'm thinking of.
Well, I tell you what, I'm hearing that at this conference here.
Well, it's very nice of people to say that sort of thing, but my aspiration is to be part of whatever comes after the election and to help us win that election, obviously, if we possibly can.
Melanie Phillips, columnist for The Times, has just been on stage. She was a couple of people after you, and she was discussing how actually she believes that the Red Wall voters that were a main part of that 2019 coalition actually are more conservative than the Conservative Party. Now, does that explain that fundamental tension that's evidenced in the local election results between one-time voters in 2019 and the current Conservative Party?
Well, I've said before, I think the Conservative Party, is an extremely, probably excessively broad church nowadays, and it seems like there's no opinion that you couldn't find somebody in the Conservative Party that held it. So it's true that it's very broad. I do people the favour, the service of thinking that if they vote a Conservative, it's because they are Conservatives, and therefore we should try and deliver Conservative policies for them. And I think it is a fallacy to think that people in the Red Wall kind of really want Labour policies. I don't think that's why they voted for us. So I think the important thing is for the Conservative Party to kind of centre down, work out what it's about. And for me, it's about the nationhood, rebuilding this country after Brexit. And it's about freedom and free markets and the things that we knew make this country prosperous. And when I go around the country, whether it's the Red Wall, the Blue Wall, or anywhere else, to Conservative voters and associations, that's what they like and want to hear.
And they're themes that are coming up at this conference time and again. It's a key tenet of the entire conference, a reason for it being introduced by Yoram Hazony, James Orr and others. And thank God they have done it. I'm sure you agree with that sentiment.
Absolutely, it's been brilliant to have so much debate.
But a lot of arguments are actually saying, and if I might put it as frankly as I'm about to, that Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party and Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party are basically two cheeks of the same behind, if I can put it so bluntly. Do you accept that assessment?
Well, I wouldn't agree with that assessment. I think, the Rishi Sunak Conservative Party, obviously feels a bit different to the Boris Johnson-led party and the Liz Truss-led one. But no, I actually think Rishi Sunak is a strong Conservative. He is actually a social Conservative, I think, in person. I think the problem is he's got a very, very fractious party to manage, and a party with a very wide range of opinion, and getting anything done is extremely difficult. Now, my view is that you need to lead, you need to set out propositions and bring people with you, and my worry is that we're taking a sort of lowest common denominator. Let's remove all problems from the table and see where that leaves us. But I think that approach just risks making people feel, okay, so what are we trying to do here? But it doesn't mean he's not a Conservative. He absolutely is. It's different tactics.
Yeah, but it is troubling, isn't it, that you look at the local elections and it looks to me, given the low turnout, that a lot of Conservative voters just said, I'm not turning out, I'm not going to bother. Or
so.
they, in a small minority, voted for Reform UK, formerly the Brexit Party, or went back to Labour. That is a pretty damning indictment for the Conservative Party so soon after winning an 80-seat majority, the biggest since Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know what the Reform Party effect was. Certainly where I'm from, in Derby, there were a couple of council seats that we should have won and didn't win because so many people went to Reform and Labour won them instead. I'm not sure how widespread phenomenon that is, but it definitely exists. But yeah, I think people are sitting on their hands because they see that we've been in power for a long time and haven't necessarily delivered everything that we said we were going to. And migration is the obvious example of that, where every party actually for a long time has said we're going to reduce migration, and every time it's gone up. So it's not surprising people feel a bit turned off.
I mean, just finally, Boris Johnson, you're a big ally of his, big supporter. Is the only way actually that the Conservative Party stands a chance of winning the next election to revive, like Lazarus, Boris Johnson's prime ministerial career?
I think I'm sure Boris has a big role to play in British public life. I can't quite see him coming back in that way, I must admit. And obviously I've had my differences with him over the last
more recently,
the last couple of years. But I think the way to win an election is to set out policies that people want to vote for, and that's migration, that's economic growth, that is building houses. Some people like that, some people don't, but we know that it's necessary, so we should make the case for it. It's about setting out a positive, optimistic view for the future that people can get behind.
And on that point though, you did recognise in your speech that we do need to reduce migration because it's beyond unsustainable. What it is now is a complete and utter joke, and actually I think it takes the mickey, frankly, out of the British people who time and again have said, look, this needs to be brought under control. Tens of thousands is what we were promised, tens of thousands.
I mean, what can I say? Obviously, we need to do this. And the trouble is, I think we've got ourselves into a position where the currency of our words is now extremely weak because we've said this over and over again and not done it.
Absolutely.
So people don't believe the promises. They want to see action. And we have to respond to that, I think. We have to deliver action. And obviously some of that is the small boats in the channel, but the bigger part of the problem is legal migration. And I think we should be taking decisions to reduce the numbers.
I know I said finally, but I'm going to make this one my final, I promise. The Windsor Framework, is that responsible for the reason, actually, that the Conservative Party or the Conservative government rather, is unwilling to abolish a whole host of EU laws that emanated from Brussels? Let's not forget 50% of our laws at one point are coming from there, since I was born actually. And now Kemi Badenoch has let down many of my viewers who are saying I'm disappointed in Kemi because she's not had this bonfire of laws and she's defended actually not doing it. Is it the Windsor Framework that is acting as a sort of lock around the UK to ensure that it can't diverge, because ultimately that would mean Great Britain diverges away from a constituent part of its own country?
So I think it's a subordinate part of the problem. You explained it very well, and that's exactly the risk, that the more ex-EU law that we scrap, the more we have this problem of differentiation. And the Windsor Framework locks in the current situation in a way that we didn't really envisage when we negotiated the protocol back in 2019. So that is the problem. I don't think it's the only reason why this decision's been taken about EU law, though. And to be fair to Kemi, she's the third minister in a year to have this, and that matters because the basic problem has been that the government lost grip of the bureaucracy to deliver the problem, and that happens when you have constant ministerial change and people distracted and you don't seem committed to the goals. So I'm disappointed we got to this point. I'm not that surprised. It's probably inevitable that this decision got taken. But the important thing is to keep forward momentum on reform, and that's what I'm now pressing for.
And is that forward momentum against the civil service?
Well, I think it's
A part of that, at least.
It's part of it. It's part of it. The government needs to show the political will to look at these laws and be ready to change them, reform them, make the burdens lighter, and be clear about that within the system. And then I think the civil service actually will respond.
Lord Frost, thank you very much for your time today.
Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.